Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Family Reflections. I'm your host, Keddy Emmanuel. You haven't seen me for a while. I missed you too. But I'm in here today with Dr. Amelia St. Ange. Those of you who know my mom's maiden name, you'll recognize the St. Ange there. Yes, Amelia and myself are related. I'm really excited to talk to you today, Amelia.
Oh, I wonder why. I'm nervous. I'm just playing.
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to see some of your journey as we attended Compre together. You know, shout out to Compre for life. And ever since then, you went on to study medicine, and you're now a practicing physician. So today we're going to take the opportunity to kind of dive into some things. So I just want to give you the floor for a bit to just say hello to the viewers and listeners, introduce yourself, and we'll get into it.
Okay, so I'm Amelia St. Ange. I'll try to keep it short. I'm actually from Ange. It's in the southeastern part of St. Lucia. I grew up there for most of my life. I went to Vieux Fort Compre. Like Keddy said, after that, I did 1 year at A-level, and I went on to do my undergraduate at St. Mary's in biology and chemistry. And it was then initially I really wanted to do medicine, but I think that just solidified what I wanted to do in life. So then I went on to Spartan. That's actually in St. Lucia. And I did most of my clinical rotations in the US. After Spartan, I went on to work at St. Jude's, and I did St. Jude's for about 2.5 years. And it was actually this year which I left St. Jude's, and now I'm actually in Ohio doing my internal medicine residency. And here I am right now. That's pretty brief, right? I don't know.
No, that's actually surprising to me because I literally just saw you at St. Jude's not too long
ago. I know. You saw me like right before I left.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, just at the very top, I want to give a quick shout out to all the physicians and the staff, and everyone working at St. Jude. The working conditions, I'll just come straight up and say, it's rough. It's not easy, and I'm not going to get too political on this episode, but all I will say is that not too long ago, my grandmother fell ill, and she was very sick. And on multiple occasions, I had to go to St. Jude, and I had to carry her there and watch her being cared for there. And the powers that be could have done better to have us out of the stadium much sooner than they have. But that being said, so medicine, right? You mentioned that you were studying, and you kind of made up your mind that this is something that you wanted to do. What was the incentive there?
So really, to be quite honest with you, I grew up and my dad was just like, "What do you want to be?" And before I could even answer, he's like, "You're gonna be a doctor." But I mean, anybody who knows my dad knows that you're gonna be a doctor. But I really just growing up, and I spent quite some time with my grandmother, and she had diabetes, hypertension. She would always visit the health center, and she would always take me with her when I wasn't at school. So I would just sit there while she gets her checkups and whatnot. And, I would help count her pills and put it in there. So I was just more attuned to going into medicine. And you see like a lot of things that could have been done, I guess, for, the elderlies. I mean, we really do try in St. Lucia. And I think we're actually getting there with preventative medicine and all of that. But I just always wanted to be a part of it. I always wanted to, give back and just help with that situation. So that's basically what got me. I think I believe I want to say I'm more altruistic. Yeah. And that's what got me into medicine. But yeah.
Okay. No, that's I really admire anyone who puts on the hat and decides to go to work in the medical field. Um, Listen, I've never done it, but my sister actually was a nurse, and I had the opportunity to kind of observe her life and her hours and the shifts, and sleeping in the hospital and the next day, and all of that stuff. And it's really a sacrifice. It's really a sacrifice. So hats off to the entire medical community there. So can you walk us through, having your unique perspective, can you walk us through some of the challenges that doctors in St. Lucia might face, even prior to COVID?
So we went into, even prior to COVID, I feel like we're severely understaffed. You tend to see certain years have a higher turnover of staff compared to others. Even during COVID, you could see there was a really high turnover of staff, from the nurses to the doctors. And the fact that we don't have enough staff means that we each have to do longer hours. So sometimes I would be doing, a normal work week is 40 hours. Sometimes I would probably be doing 60 hours, almost 80 hours a week, with like 12-hour shifts and whatnot. So that was rough. And putting that in to the facility not being up to par, the testing, us not actually having sufficient tests. And we're in the South, and before COVID hits, we did not have a CT scan in the South. So a lot of our critical stroke cases, intra-abdominal cases that would need a CT scan would have to be transported to the north, to Tapio, to actually get something done, then back to Beaufort. So that was hard. So I think practicing healthcare, even before COVID, was hard because of what we had.
Mm-hmm.
How should I put it? The resources that we had, we were lacking a lot, and we are still lacking in resources. And I want to say that the powers that be are trying, but we are still lacking. And being understaffed, no resources, finances, that's a whole other ball game. That was before COVID. Then COVID hit. So with COVID hitting, we're really unprepared. And the government, I guess, tried to put something in place. They had this respiratory hospital, and then there was OKU, Tapio, St. Jude's. But having a respiratory hospital now means that you need staff for that hospital. And we were already severely understaffed.
Right.
So then you would see there was a longer wait time with patients. A lot of people complained. And even at St. Jude's, there were rooms that had to be retrofitted to be isolation rooms because we couldn't keep, respiratory cases together with the general public. With those isolation rooms, there came a problem with staffing again. Who would do the isolation room? And whoever did the isolation room generally wasn't advised to be, you're seeing isolated patients, you cannot be with, the general patients.
All right.
So that was an issue. And during the whole lockdown, there was a period where we generally did not get that many patients because I guess everyone was staying home. But after it opened up, everyone was sick and everyone was swarming. And I think our main issue in St. Lucia is staffing and resources. And I could go on and on about it. And I think, I'm not sure many people realize that is our reality. And a lot of people complain, it's so slow, the wait time is long, but there's just not enough doctors and nurses right now to help. Everyone's leaving, and I may be a culprit too, because I left.
No.
But everyone wants to, further their education. Everyone wants to subspecialize. Everyone wants to specialize. And in a sense, it's a good thing. But that brings brain drain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see even there, this it sounds like this issue is a subsidiary of the larger issue of brain drain in St. Lucia, right? Where talented people, skilled people, and people who just can tend to just leave. And, of course, I actually I touched on this with Dr. Anthony when I spoke to him in terms of, you do feel a level of guilt um, after you leave. And, you want to give back, but you're also caught between the reality of, what's best for you as opposed to, yeah. So that gets tough, but it also sounds like there's a loop there as well, because due to problems with staffing, you're working crazy hours. So then it becomes the door is wide open for you to leave, which adds to the problem with staffing. so it contributes to the high turnover rate because there's not enough people, and because there's not enough people, there's not enough people. And, yeah. Yeah, I chuckle at it, but it's a serious issue, man. How do you see us solving this? If we just had a sheet of paper in front of us and we could fix this, how would we fix this?
The current incentive of scholarships going to Cuba and Taiwan, and I mean, quite a bit of students, I would say maybe 7 to 8. I may be wrong with my random number, but I think scholarships for medicine, scholarships for nursing, with different incentives would actually help with that. And even then, I mean, I didn't go to Cuba, so I don't know the issue with the bonds and how much they have to give back or how long they have to stay. But there could be something done with that and, trying to keep doctors. And I think in St. Lucia, we have a lot of general doctors. We do have specialists, but we do, I mean, there are quite a bit, maybe about 4 doctors a year who try to go to specialize and whatnot. But I think the government should at least put something in place where, we send more of our doctors to specialize. Up until maybe 2 years ago, there wasn't a neurologist in St. Lucia. Up until a few years ago, there wasn't a neurosurgeon. You know what I mean? We don't have a pulmonologist. There are lots of specialists we lack. I mean, the neighboring islands like Martinique, Barbados, they do have those. But imagine what happened during COVID when people who needed subspecialty care that St. Lucia could not provide. Imagine what issues they went through to just get that subspecialty care. Some people have not even gotten it. Yeah. There's a lot that happened during COVID. Like there was an issue, with the Will Pediatric Project, and they service the Caribbean every year. They come every year. They see seizure patients and whatnot, but they couldn't do it during COVID. So that's 2 years now that, seizure patients or kids with seizures could have gotten, a review or care from the Will Pediatric Project, and they haven't. And they would just used to getting it every year.
Yeah.
So I usually go off on tangents. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I go off on tangents too. So we both on tangents together. Yeah. I think what you referred to in terms of scholarship incentive and maybe some sort of contractual obligations from said scholarships may be the way to go in terms of addressing the understaffing for sure. I kind of want to walk a mile in your shoes, so to speak, and not just walk a mile in your shoes during the regular times in your practice in St. Lucia, but rather, I'm not too sure how much you worked during the peak of COVID. Okay, it looks like the answer is a lot. So help us walk a mile in your shoes there. What was that like?
I hate to say that it was exciting. It was exciting for me because it was so unknown. Like it was the unknown. Everyone was trying to, there was still, research going on with COVID, where did it happen? What treatment do you use? How do you treat it? How do patients present? Because, some patients just present in respiratory distress. But we had, odd cases where patients, diabetics would present with really high blood sugars. They look really sick. They don't require that much oxygen. You swab them, they're positive. And then, it just declines from there. But it was exciting for me in a sense. I worked a lot. At that point, we had just transitioned to 12-hour shifts. During that time, I actually worked in the ER, and I have worked in the ER from 2018. We had recently transitioned to 18-hour shifts. 12-hour shifts, not 18-hour shifts.
Right.
And usually 3 to 4 days straight, off and on 5 days, because, healthcare personnel, would contract COVID.
Yeah.
So somebody had to catch a slack. But it was, coming to work, you see your patients, and then the ambulance maybe calls or the nurse calls in triage. Hey, we have this patient in with shortness of breath, and I'm sorry about the noise in the background.
There's actually some irony hearing that siren right there.
Right?
Yeah. So as you said, ambulance, yeah.
So she would call, hey, we have this patient with shortness of breath, or we have this patient just says, he has chest pain. So, we had to triage those patients accordingly. And there was this room retrofitted for COVID cases. And sometimes it would be 1 or 2 doctors on the shift. Usually there's no more than 2. Sometimes on an off time, you would get 3. Sometimes it's 1. So who do you see first, the non-COVID or the COVID patients? We usually try to see the COVID patient because usually they would come in respiratory distress. Yeah. And we would gown up, which would take a while, take our, safety measures, see the COVID patients. And unfortunately, we would have to go back and forth with COVID and non-COVID patients because a lot was happening. You really cannot neglect a patient that is not COVID, but is also, declining. And then the COVID patient is declining. We would have to be doing a lot of swabbing. On top of that, I think we had to practice social medicine in being like, oh, you need to really isolate and whatnot. The government will call you, or whoever will call you. We're not sure when you're going to get your results, because the system was not really organized back then. We would send the swabs up to OKU, and I don't know who would call to say, someone would call patients and be like, hey, you're positive. We're coming to pick you up.
Yes.
It was really a shot in the dark when COVID initially started. But then I think policies changed, guidelines changed. And I think St. Jude's actually did a pretty good job at, sticking to the protocol with treating COVID patients. You isolate, you try to treat, patient feels really bad or patient looks clinically unstable, you transfer to Victoria Hospital, the respiratory clinic.
All right.
But I would say between October and February of this year, it was like the worst time at work ever. We had that spike in cases, and healthcare workers were not immune to it. So we were really working those rough shifts. And I don't think anybody realized it. And I wouldn't say it's not that no one cared, but I felt that a lot more could have been done in making everyone aware of the situation. Even when we had our recent spiking cases, I'm in Ohio right now. I really didn't know what was going on, but I could have only imagined because it was worse than the October to February spike. Okay. But I'm pretty sure they went through the same issues that we had gone through back then.
Right. I think in terms of scale, the most recent spike in St. Lucia was about double any of the previous ones. So I can only imagine that things were really, really tight, really rough. It makes me wonder, because you mentioned that some of your colleagues would actually contract COVID, and now people have to stay home and other persons are having to pick up the slack. So what does that do to you like, what does that do to your psyche, or what is the psychological impact when somebody you were just working with maybe last week, you heard that, oh yeah, person X is home, they caught it, does that is that terrifying? I mean, you're working and other people are catching it, and you're going home. What's that like?
I could tell you morale was very low during the beginning of COVID and even the middle. Very low in the sense that everyone was scared. And I mean, you're in the brunt of it. You're at a hospital. You see the sickest patients. You have a family to go home to. You don't work at the respiratory hospital, and at that time, staff who was at the respiratory hospital would get to go to, I guess, this isolation area or this quarantine hotel, where they stayed, just so they don't expose their family to it, which is fair enough. However, everybody else gets into contact with COVID patients. So it was already, I mean, I had a 2-year-old at that time. I was so frightened that he would contract COVID from me.
Yeah.
Just from me coming home, and he always wants to hug me and whatnot. So I would have to come home, stay away from him, shower, put my scrubs into a bag and, put it in the laundry, whatnot, just to make sure that, I don't really expose him to that. On top of staff being sick, I think at one point everyone was just desensitized to it. Like, oh, well, hey, colleague one has COVID. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not coughing. I wore my mask. I tried to adhere to the protocols at work. All right, I guess we swab and we wait.
Yeah.
During that time, I mean, I don't even know how many swabs I have done. I don't know how many times I've swabbed. And a lot of people have swabbed multiple times. I could tell you right now, I'm pretty sure 3/4 of healthcare workers in St. Lucia are now desensitized to all of that.
Yeah, they've just been for the fire, right? So they're baked in.
Yeah. Hey, this person has COVID. Oh, okay, cool. How are you doing? All right. Well, I guess I'm doing good. Thank God the vaccine came on. I'm
right.
pro-vax.
Right.
It's helped me see through this whole COVID ordeal.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you mentioned being pro-vax, because that's a whole other discussion right there. I got the Moderna vaccine, and I see both sides of the argument, right? Some people are afraid of taking it because they're really pensive about the level of the amount of testing that's been done surrounding the development of the vaccine and all this stuff. And there's also lots of opinions flying around on social media. And then on the flip side, we have other persons who take the vaccines, people like myself. I'm assuming people like you. And I took it based on the fact that I really believe at some point we're probably all going to get this. I don't think we're I don't think we're living in a world where COVID is going to disappear, and if you haven't gotten it yet, you're probably never going to get it. No, you're eventually going to get COVID, and you're either going to get it with a vaccine or you're not going to have one. And I prefer to have the vaccine when I get it.
So. I agree. And we've actually, and you could actually see the benefits of the vaccine right now. I mean, people with the vaccine get COVID. What I've seen right now in practice is a lot of the patients that are passing away, a lot of the patients that are dying, a lot of patients that are really disabled now from COVID are unvaccinated patients. And we've had a couple of vaccinated patients who got COVID, and they're mild, they're alive, they're kicking, hey, I had COVID. All right, I'm cool now.
Right.
That's what it's been, most of it. So
yeah, I think a lot of it comes from people who hear of cases where someone had the vaccine and they did everything right, and they still ended up passing away. And then people look at that and they throw their, oh, that's a maposa. It don't make sense, right? But in any scenario, there will always be anomalies, right? there's always going to be an anomaly where someone has a poor reaction. So I don't know. I'm pro-vax as well. That's the long and short of it.
That's good. I like it.
Train of thought though.
Pro-vax.
Yes. Yeah. So I was saying that very often it seems like the people in either camp, either or, want bad things to happen to the people who have a different opinion. So people who are pro-vax are like, oh yeah, if you didn't take the vaccine, if you die, which is a horrible stance to have. And then other people who are not pro-vax, who are against the vaccine, are like, if you grow a third eye or something, you should have been a little smarter. But I think we should all be hoping for the best for each other in these times.
Right? Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're either or, nothing but love for you. I would recommend that you take the vaccine. But
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So that being said, if you were sitting on a panel right now, where we have the Prime Minister's air and we're looking at the possibilities for the future, and we want to have a more resilient St. Lucia, a more resilient infrastructure, one that is more prepared. What do we do? What are your thoughts on that?
More resilient in what sense? In healthcare wise, or contributing to healthcare?
More resilient in terms of handling another wave, another pandemic.
I think I get called that quite a few times. I'm more of a dictator, like I set rules. And I think, if we're gonna set protocols, we also need to set rules. Like that's a given. If something has to work, we need to set rules. We need to tell people the pros, the cons of it. We need to tell people, that, if you break rules, what's going to happen? I think a more resilient St. Lucia, in a sense that I really hate to say this, because trust me, I've been double down on just saying that I would make vaccination mandatory. Okay. And I'm just going back to the whole vax thing, but let me get more serious about this.
Yeah.
I think a plan needs to be made. We basically have, I would say, 3 hospitals in St. Lucia. And let me tell you, Tapio is one, OKU is one, the respiratory clinic is half a hospital, and St. Jude's is half a hospital. So we have 4 structures, but 3 hospitals. Either way, we really need to double down and get serious about the St. Jude's Hospital. You have half of an island basically being serviced by that hospital, and the place is deteriorating. That's half of an island not being able to access really good healthcare.
Yeah.
And in that half of the island, poverty, there's a certain percentage of poverty in that half. People can't always afford a Tapio lifestyle or a Tapio healthcare. First and foremost, I think we need to, get that right and just set it straight. Let's get a hospital. Let's get a fully functional hospital.
Right.
With a fully functional hospital, we need staffing. We need personnel. There needs to be a plan on how to retain medical doctors, how to retain our nurses, and medical is the most important part of healthcare. The nurses actually play a very vital role. Trust me, a hospital with no nurses is not a hospital.
It's not a hospital.
Right. And we need to treat healthcare staff better. And that's not only doctors and nurses. There are pharmacists involved, there are lab techs involved, there are attendants involved. No man is an island. It's that type of thing. And I feel that with St. Lucia right now, and I'm not being political, I always have to give that disclaimer.
I know, right?
The past and right now, Healthcare is not the number one. Healthcare is not number two. Healthcare is not number three. Healthcare is not even in the top five right now. And it's evident, and that's a fact. And we need to actually start making it number one because the well-being of a country is the population.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you have tourism and you have a poor healthcare system, what happens if a tourist gets sick? And that has happened a million times. Like we've had tourists, stuff happens to them and they have to be, they have to get air ambulance, to back to, I guess, Miami or wherever they came from. And it's disheartening, it's embarrassing, and I think it's gone on for too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a plan of making St. Lucia a hub for medical tourism. I'm not sure who exactly came up with that plan, but I felt like it was a really good plan. Or at least have different points in the OACS for different specialties. Mm-hmm. So let's say St. Lucia was probably the neurosurgery hub of the Caribbean. Any big neurosurgery case would have to be flown to St. Lucia. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that's a good idea. There's CARICOM, there's Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucia. I mean, the heads could get together and create that and make that a reality, as opposed to having to fly to Barbados where you have to pay BDS, which is 1.35 times our currency, or Martinique where you have to use euro, which is just way more than what we have to pay. A lot of thought needs to be put into things like that. And it could become a reality. It really could. And I mean, irrespective of CARICOM, just a standalone island, we could become a medical tourism hub for something.
Right.
I was reading something about BBLs.
About what exactly?
BBLs. Don't make me say. What, you've never heard of BBLs? Or you're just acting like you don't know what it is?
I feel like I should know about this right now, but I'm just blank. I'm a blank slate.
BBLs, really? It's, those women who enhance their butts and,
Oh.
Really?
I know different acronyms, but it's not BBL.
What is it?
It's I can't remember right now. So okay, let's run with BBL. Okay.
So there's this I think he's a plastic surgeon. There's this plastic surgeon in Barbados who does BBLs, and it's like the biggest thing now. Everyone or every woman wants a BBL, because they want that really curvy shape. Hats off to them, that's fine. But he does it, so he actually gets quite a bit of Caribbean clientele. So everybody goes to Barbados, they get their BBLs. I mean, some surgeons probably do it, and he has this office in St. Lucia. And, he has his staff working for him. And I like that. I love that for him. But, we could do something like that.
Yeah, we could do that too. Yeah.
Maybe not BBLs, but.
I think the whole medical hub idea was kind of the initial incentive behind the design of the OKEU. When that was first conceived, I think it was one of the baby steps towards that direction. I'm not sure about now, though. It looks like we just finished it and we tried our best, and it's just kind of.
That's what I call it. But
I've never actually seen that facility, but it looks like a decent spot, and I can only hope, as you said, that we can get a facility in the south of the island that is comparable to the OKEU. But I completely agree on what you shared there about St. Jude being a priority and healthcare in St. Lucia being a high priority. Here's what makes my blood boil. Can I tell you? I'll tell you.
Yes.
So what makes my blood boil is this. The people on the island that can make changes and can make noise and have the influence and weight to really pressure policy, they can afford Tapio. And they can not only afford Tapio, they can afford to leave and go to Miami. They're normally citizens, US citizens, and they can just leave whenever they want and just go and get the healthcare and just come back home whenever they want. And for that reason, the people who are stuck with what is not just available, but in terms of the people who have to go to St. Jude, not because they only want to go to St. Jude, but they cannot go anywhere else. There is no other option. This is it. Those people normally can't change the construction of a new hospital. They can't change the timeline. They can't pressure the policy surrounding it. They can't bid for more funding. And so, you know, I'm going to start getting upset as I start talking about this, but it really bothers me. It bothers me that sort of stratification, socioeconomic stratification, and its responsibility for suffering bothers me. And I think right here on this episode, doing my best to raise the alarm and raise the red flag. Remember the red flag trend? I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
There was a red flag trend. This is me raising the red flag on this issue.
I'm really happy right now that and again, I try not to get political because I could get political, but I'm really happy right now that, you know, the Minister of Health right now is from the South. And I think that should mean something. And I think that's going to at least do something because he's right next door to St. Jude's. He sees the plight of his people. And hopefully he does push for something. I have faith. You know, something's going to happen. Don't know when. Don't know if I should have faith, but.
Oh, yeah. No, we're not just having faith. Folks, you know that he's in the South. You're from the South. If you have to make noise, make noise.
People.
Yeah, we're not just asking and hoping. We're demanding now. It's been a little too long, a little too much asking and hoping. Now we're demanding and telling that it needs to happen. So that being said, you mentioned that going through certain waves of COVID, practicing through that and weathering all that difficulty. You mentioned that, you know, it was difficult, and you even used the word exciting just because it was unpredictable in that way. So I'm wondering, would you say that weathering this storm made you a better physician?
Yes. I went through different stages in COVID. Like at one point it was the unknown. We were really scared. We were really frightened. Then it got really exciting, you know, learning new things, being at the top of on our toes. Basically learning new things, being quick with treatment. Then there was the anger stage. I could tell you, I went through a very angry stage in my life. And I hate it. I hate that I went through it. The resentment, the lack of morale, the anger, it was very unbecoming. And then the vaccine started to roll out and I became even angrier because of all the pushback we were having. And I felt that we had been working so hard. My baby wasn't seeing me. You know, I would come home when he was sleeping. My baby barely saw me, and there was something that could help decrease the number of cases, you know, decrease the burden on the healthcare system. And nobody was people were just not doing it. People weren't helping. To then acceptance. And I think right now I'm at a stage in my career, in my life, where I know never to allow such anger and resentment to fill me so much. I was really mad. I was really upset. And I don't know, I can't remember exactly at what point I saw you at the hospital. But I do know you probably saw me really angry and not smiling. And I'm usually a smiley, bubbly person, you know. I'd be like, hey, how you doing? No, I was angry. And I hated being that person. And I don't ever want to be that person anymore.
Yeah,
So
I remember seeing you. You looked very stoic.
That's so, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, that was a pretty bad time in my life. And I know we share cousins that are also physicians.
Yeah.
So you could ask your cousin, who I love, my dear friend, how she felt during that time. We were not taking it very well. And I think we've all grown from that. And we now know the do's and the don'ts and how to separate your personal life from your professional life, and how to deal with very stressful situations in the workplace and in medicine.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share with us kind of what led to even the because you were angry. What led to the anger kind of dissolving away? How did you deal with that?
First of all, I was tired. I was really tired. The work hours were really getting to us. The workload was really getting to us being understaffed. And I finally got my vacation. And it's to no fault of anybody. It's just the timing I set my vacation for. And I got some time to reset, reboot. I did some reading. And I think actually getting a therapist helped a lot.
Ding, ding, ding. Mental health.
And people hate to admit it, but I think everyone going through something really hard in their life needs at least, a therapy session here and there. Having a therapist should not be an embarrassing thing. Having somebody to talk to, somebody that could really put you back on track is a very good thing. And thank God I did it. So yeah.
So my whole opinion on therapy is this, right? You go to a doctor for an annual checkup, right? Because within a year's time, your body could start to kind of, something could begin going wrong. You need to get an annual checkup. So people do that. It's not a stretch that within a year's time, with all the trauma that you go through within a year, you may lose loved ones, you may go through a breakup, you may lose, things happen. And so we need help to process those things. So in order to remain emotionally healthy, I don't think it's a stretch that you need to go talk to a therapist sometimes, right? And too often we turn to negative coping mechanisms and say, "I safe, man. I'm all right." You're not all right.
You're really not.
You're not all right. So go get yourself checked out. I've been to therapy myself, and shout out to BetterHelp. This is not an ad.
Oh, you use them too?
Yeah, I use BetterHelp.
Yeah, me too.
It was a good experience. It was all right. Yeah. And so shout out to therapy, man. That was our little mental health plug. But moving out of that, we had an election season. I'm not sure if you were on the island during that period.
Unfortunately, I was not.
Okay, maybe fortunately, who knows?
So, no, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I really wanted to vote.
Okay.
More so because I've never voted in my life. I've just always been like at school during elections. Okay. That's the only reason why I really wanted to vote.
Yeah, same here. And I actually did a sketch during that season because, you could see on the news, people whining, people enjoying themselves, no mask at the rallies. And I made a super spreader skit. The super spreader skit did not do well at all. I don't think people wanted to see it. But the whole premise was this guy who got COVID and he was jumping up at the rallies. And after the rallies, he realized he had it. So now they call him super spreader. Yeah, that was the whole premise. And I was not too happy to see that that sketch actually proved to be sort of a prophetic sketch, because there was the last wave, that massive wave, came after the election season. So do you think the election season had anything to do with those cases getting out of control there?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely had to do with it. I think everyone is just eyeballing, that part of the cases, but in reality, during that time, there were still parties going on. People weren't adhering to the protocols. I said protocols.
The protocols.
Yeah, the protocols. People weren't adhering to it. And I mean, let's be real. The elections did have a part to play in all the cases, but there were parties everywhere.
Yeah.
There were bars open everywhere before and after the elections. And if you consider, we still had cases even before the elections, but if you consider, okay, the elections happened, that incited a rapid decline in our cases, but that got worse even after the 2 weeks. The numbers we had for the elections, it just progressively worsened. Why did it progressively worsen?
Mm-hmm.
The elections wasn't all throughout August and September. Something else happening, right?
Right.
So we can't really just only blame the elections for our cases. It really was all of us. All the parties after the elections, all the bars opening, the lack of protocols.
The lack of protocols. So
yeah. Honestly, all of that perpetuated more cases.
Right. Yeah, man. I'm just happy at this point that the numbers are going down, the numbers are dwindling. People are looking forward in hope to a return of some level of normalcy. I can't stand the phrase new normal. It annoys me. I just said it.
Unprecedented times.
Yeah, these unprecedented times.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to people. First of all, I want to really point out to y'all that we really need, as not just St. Lucia, but wherever you're watching or listening to this, I really want to point out that you really need to try to prioritize your mental health. And I know that sounds cliche, but as a collective around the planet, the human race has gone through it during the last 2 years. We have been cooped up. We haven't been seeing each other. We haven't had the opportunity to feed off of any type of social energy. So shout out to the extroverts out there. I know y'all have been losing your minds.
And we'll go through it.
Introverts, I know you're okay, but be empathetic. And just take care of yourself, man. I'm rooting for you. Both the good doctor here and myself, we're rooting for you. So take care of yourself. So that being said, Amelia, do you have any questions for me? Anything that you want to share with the viewers and listeners before we head out of the door?
I have no questions. I want to say thanks for having me, though. I like this family reflections thing. I've watched quite a few episodes you've had. I really enjoyed, so I think you should really keep it up.
Oh, thanks.
And, I love that you have like different array of topics and different interests on there. So yeah.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure having you, and thank you for being honest and candid and sharing your experience and being even vulnerable, telling us a little bit about the behind the scenes there. Guys, I know we missed an episode there. We missed another episode there. I've been going through some life changes. I recently moved, and there's been stuff going on. So bear with me. I'm not going anywhere. And Family Reflections will be back. Y'all know I always do this. Y'all would think by now, after almost a year plus, I would look up the date in advance instead of doing this every time. But the next episode of Family Reflections will air on the 22nd. You're watching this on the 8th. So we'll see you on the 22nd. I believe that is Thanksgiving week if you're in the United States. We kind of sleep on Thanksgiving in St. Lucia, but it's a great holiday. I like it.
The holidays, so I like it.
Yeah. I like it because it's a time for family. I'm big on that. So all right, Amelia, I'll let you go. Thank you for joining me, and bye everybody.